Over 15,000 views. Thank you. You made my video on Aizen one of the most successful on the channel, and it's given the cafe a huge boost. And a warm welcome to over 200 new subscribers. Just a quick heads up about what Cafe Zealot is all about. I share my insights on manga, I dive into cultural moments in anime, and every so often revisit my watched or read list to drop a retrospective. It's a one-person show here, creator, editor, publisher. The Bleach gameplay that you see in the background, that's all me. I'm an active Brave Souls player, and it's the best way I've found to keep editing fun and keep myself sane. Fair use can be tricky, and it's nothing worse than getting a video flagged after uploading, especially when the video is in 4K. It is a all-day adventure. So if you want to support the cafe and my sanity, subscribe, drop a like, and turn on alerts to stay updated. But that's enough from me. Let's get into today's focus, Kaname Tosen. The poem Kubo wrote for Kaname Tosen at the beginning of Bleach Volume 44 states, "People are all evil in order to falsely believe yourself to be just. You must inevitably falsely believe that someone else is more evil than you." Tōsen, alongside Gin and Aizen, ascend into Wako Mundo. Tōsen answers Sajin's question about why did he become a Soul Reaper.
But I'd made it clear to you. My eyes can only see one path, and that is the path with the least amount of blood. Justice is always there, and the path I follow is justice.
He opposes forces of power as they do not align with his brand of justice. This belief ultimately leads him to an idealist like Aizen. Nietzsche stated in his book, Thus Spoke the Zarathustra, "Man is a rope stretched between the beast and the Übermensch, a rope over an abyss." The relationship between Tōsen and Aizen can be seen as a direct reflection of this concept. While Aizen seeks to alter reality, Tōsen seeks to impose peace through justice. The contradictions and cracks in Tōsen's ideals began to show when we compare what he believes the world should be in contrast to how he views the world internally. He never sees the world for what it is, ideologically or physically, due to his blindness. In this video, we're going to explore the three distinct faces of Tōsen, which can be seen through his relationship with Kakyo, the woman who embraced him, his old friend Sajin, and his former lieutenant, Hisagi. I want to answer the question that was stuck in my mind. Was Tōsen able to attain redemption, or did he fall into the abyss?
I wish I could gather all the clouds so they would never again obscure the light that shines from the stars.
That's beautiful.
Tōsen is blind, caught between what he believes from his internal world and what he has been told about the world he cannot see. Hisagi and Sajin represent two sides of Tōsen. The way Tōsen connects to these identities is revealed through his struggle, but the ideal self is only shown momentarily. To start to unravel Tōsen, we have to begin with the formation of his external worldview, and also ground zero for the creation of his false self. We gain this insight through his past relationship with Kakyo. She tells him she is getting married to a Shinigami and will become a Soul Reaper to fight Hollows and bring peace. Two lines stand out from this conversation. When she states, "Stay the way you are," who is the person Tōsen is staying as? And when he states, "I thought from her voice she was smiling," the misalignment from being blind, he can only interpret what he thinks she is feeling from her voice, but he can't see it with his eyes. Tōsen never really expresses what he truly thinks, only buying into her words at face value. We see these many misunderstandings and alignments from the start of his backstory. Stepping back just a bit before this news dropped when he was having his talk originally with Kakyo, Tōsen's internal monologue was in opposition to her words. As she expresses her ideals of a just world, Tōsen can't really see the reality. He can only interpret the story he's been told about it. The world he embraces is Kakyo's vision, filtered through his interpretation. It's what he thought he heard because of what he couldn't see. We know that through her words, she saw light in the darkness and wanted to erase the clouds, but what we don't know is if these words were said in melancholy or joy, and what Tōsen internally states is, "I like the clouds." This is the initial misalignment with the external viewpoints he embraces versus what he keeps hidden inside. Tōsen can't see her reality. He simply embraces her ideals without understanding. Tōsen clung to her voice. He loved the way she said his name. What he holds onto is the idea of the beautiful and just world she believed in, a world that had a place for him through her acknowledgement. But the mouth lies. Always look at the eyes for the truth. Except Kubo shrouds half her face in a silhouette, which raises critical questions. Did she truly believe in the world she described? I believe she was committed to her vision, but those same ideals blinded her to the harshness of the life she was marrying into. She was killed the first time she tried to confront her husband, who was not in line with the world she wanted to create. Was she happy? We don't know, and neither did Tōsen, like he already stated. I thought from her voice she was smiling. When Central 46 denied her justice after her death, that moment became the origin of Tōsen's decision to become a Shinigami. This is where Tōsen's ambitions for justice are born, and we gain insight into his true self. Upon her grave and blade, he decides to impose her ideals on the unjust world and seek revenge for her beautiful world, the idealistic one that had a place for him. The man Tōsen believes he needs to become begins to take shape, his fake self, as his true self is poured into the Zanpakuto he now wields.
If it's not enough to believe in justice, then for her I swear I will become justice and seek out all the evil in this world so that I may wipe it out. Like the wind casts away the clouds in the sky.
Kaname means pivot, vital point, keystone, the central piece that holds everything together. It's a name that implies importance, moral grounding, and structure. And that fits, at least on the surface. Tōsen presents himself as a moral compass, a man of principle, guided by justice above all else. He positions himself as the foundation for a better world. But this makes his betrayal of the Goatee 13 all the more ironic. The very man whose name means the vital point chooses to side with Aizen, fracturing the foundation he claimed to stand on. A linchpin that removes itself is no longer a support, it's a failure of purpose. Now look at his surname, Tōsen. To means east, the direction of sunrise, often tied to origin, enlightenment, and new beginnings. Sen refers to sage, hermit, or immortal, someone detached from the world, walking a higher spiritual path. Put together, Tōsen can be interpreted as Eastern Sage or Hermit of the East, a name invoking wisdom and spiritual clarity. It paints the image of a man who rises above earthly corruption in pursuit of something greater. But again, the name reflects not who he is, but who he pretends to be. Like Tōsen, Sajin's name tells a hidden story, one that reflects both his loyalty and his isolation. His given name, Sajin, translates roughly to left battle formation or left of the front line. Then there's Komamura, his family name. Koma refers to the Kamainu, or guardian lion dogs that stand watch outside temples. Mura means village, making his full name read like Village of Guardians. Sajin and Tōsen's friendship begins symbolically in Bleach, chapter 179, with Sajin silently watching the back of a blind man who couldn't even sense his presence, a backwards greeting from someone who quite literally could not see him. Sajin had left his clan to embrace the human world, but due to his beast-like appearance, he was shunned, unseen, unwanted, until he met Tōsen. Their bond was forged in mutual exclusion, two outcasts who found meaning in each other.
I have no doubts. If he should ask, I would give my life. How about you, Kaname?
Sajin became the physical embodiment of Tōsen's fake self, an external projection of moral clarity, humility, and justice that never truly existed within Tōsen. It's Sajin who begins to notice the cracks, recognizing that while Tōsen could speak of justice, he never described a just world in his own words. Just the words of the one whose blade he carries. Still, Sajin clung to those borrowed ideals, blinded by friendship and his own need for meaning. Their friendship is a mirror of the bond Tōsen had with Keikyo. She offered him ideals ungrounded from the reality he was blind to. Now Tōsen does the same to Sajin, crafting a vision of the world and himself that is free of the truth of his internal darkness, but the hollowness of his soul can still be seen. Sajin was blind to the reality of human nature, but he could see a portion of what Tōsen was hiding. His hopes of healing Tōsen by embracing his darkness and sharing his sadness were noble, but would ultimately fail. The ideals that united them were convictions that were only preached by Tōsen. Those ideals only became Sajin's truth, as Tōsen just wore them as a mask. That's why Sajin's perceived disappointment comes off more layered. The embarrassment of finding yourself through the belief in ideals that were just a facade. Finding out the friendship you would bleed for is superficial, corrupt, and built on nothing. In chapter 385 Vice, we see these revelations fester. As Tōsen betrays every value he claimed to stand for, Sajin tries to pull him back to justice, back to truth. But how can you bring someone back to ideals they never truly believed in? Tōsen told us from the beginning, he was in pursuit of power. Sajin's eyes are open, but the Tōsen he wanted to bring back never existed. As he stands on a false foundation of borrowed values within a collapsing world of illusions, Tōsen begins to evolve, ready to show his old friend his true self. As a reader, you can feel the weight on Sajin's heart. He saw the hollowness in Tōsen's words from the very beginning. He knew something was off, but he chose to believe anyway. He stayed loyal, committed, past the point of no return, and now all he can do is summon the courage to confront the man he once called a friend, by turning Tōsen's fake ideals into his own truth. Because when convictions are that far apart, when justice becomes corrupted by power, there's no longer room for persuasion. Tōsen, through his pursuit of power, has become the very disruption to peace he once claimed to fight against. The mask he wore is cracked, and now his true self is beginning to emerge. Sajin meets him with resolve. He echoes the words Tōsen once said to Kenpachi back in Soul Society. "I will slay you for Soul Society. My heart has already forgiven you."
Let's take a moment and turn the pendulum back to that fateful, reflected moment when Tōsen stepped in for Sajin against Kenpachi, when he pulled Kenpachi into the darkness of his Bankai, but in doing so, Tōsen unknowingly prophesized his own downfall.
Bankai, Suzumushi, Suishiki, and Makurogi.
Kaname Tosen's Bankai, Suzumushi, Suishiki, Inma, Kurogi is more than just a technique. It is the physical manifestation of his inner world, his fears, and the false justice he clings to. To understand Tōsen, you must understand the sword he pours his soul into. His Zanpakuto is called Suzumushi, literally translated as pure insect, but more culturally recognized as cricket. In Japanese myth and poetry, crickets are deeply symbolic. They are associated with loneliness, autumn, and the fleeting nature of life. Their song is haunting, soft, high-pitched, and melancholic. Often heard but rarely seen, in folklore, the cry of a cricket can symbolize regret or the presence of a spirit lingering in sorrow. This ties directly to Tōsen's character, a man defined by loss whose entire philosophy was built on the voice of a woman he could not see, the ideals he never made his own. Suzumushi's Shikai already reveals this, a cry that disables opponents through sound, painless yet absolute. It disorientates without violence, echoing his surface level commitment to least bloodshed. But here we begin to see the contradiction, a humane weapon used in pursuit of vengeful justice. Then comes the Bankai, Enma Kurogi, which translates as cricket final form, Yama cricket, or bell bug closing ceremony. Let's break his Bankai down a bit further. Suishiki means final form or closing ceremony. It invokes death, ritual, and endings, fitting for a man who believes in exchanging justice at all costs. Enma is the Japanese name for King Yama, the Buddhist deity of the underworld who judges souls after death. By invoking this name, Tōsen aligns himself with judgment, punishment, and a kind of divine justice he believes he's enacting. Kurogi simply means cricket, but again, this quiet, fragile insect associated with sadness and transience becomes a symbol for Tōsen's internal weakness, masked as righteousness. The Bankai creates a black void, a dome that strips away all sense except touch. Tōsen names this state Mumyo, literally no light, but more deeply, the Buddhist term for avidya, or spiritual ignorance, the root of all suffering and delusion, the inability to see things as they are. Isn't that exactly what defines Tōsen? Tōsen creates a world without light because he has never seen the world himself. His Bankai is a cage of ignorance, where he holds power only because his victims are more blind than he is. But that power is fragile, conditional. It disappears the moment someone grabs hold of the hilt of his sword, symbolically when someone grasps their reality. The illusion of Tōsen's Bankai falls apart. The dome is held together by 10 floating rings, each inscribed with kanji: bone, scatter, tragic, fester, blood, spread, a lexicon of violence, decay, and emptiness. These aren't symbols of justice, they are burial hymns for Tōsen's morality. 10 rings, 9 of them representing the 9 Buddhist stages of death, or the 9 stages of bodily decay, with Tōsen being the holder of the 10th ring at the center from where this darkness permeates. The darkness of Tōsen's Bankai isn't just symbolic, it's his truth. His blindness is not a limitation, it's a mirror of his internal worldview, and the nullification of the senses within his Bankai is the ultimate illusion, a veil meant to hide the weak, fearful man who exists at its center. In that fabricated void, Tōsen holds power only because everyone else is left as blind as he is in a world he has mastered the rules of. But the dome isn't just a battlefield. It's a prison, a cage built from the fear of a world where he is powerless, seen, and judged. He told Kenpachi during their fight inside his Bankai, "The only one who can leave the darkness is the one holding Suzumushi."
There is only one man who can escape this hell, and that is he who wields Suzumushi.
Those words were a prophecy foretold by Tōsen and realized through his resurrection. Through Grillar, Tōsen is no longer the man hiding behind a mask of justice. He no longer fears Suzumushi, he becomes it. His fear, his shame, and his weakness are shed, and what emerges is what he believes to be his liberation, his truest self unchained. But here lies the tragedy, because what he becomes is not enlightenment. It is the self-fulfilling prophecy of a man consumed by darkness. Now, in his final form, as Suzumushi itself, Tōsen is released from darkness, attaining the power he yearned for. He sees the world for the first time, but what he sees is not justice. What he sees is ugliness. Sajin, even with doubling down through his conviction, could not beat Tōsen's true self. Tōsen's fake ideals were weaker than his desire for power. But the lessons Tōsen taught his ideal self were conditioned to handle his truth.
Reap. Kazeshini.
Tōsen was only able to relish in his truth for a moment before Hisagi's blade ran clean through his neck, as Kazeshini is commanded to reap.
Those who are unafraid to hold their swords in battle don't have the right to hold them at all. Shuhei, if you are truly afraid of fighting, then you have already gained something invaluable to a warrior.
Chapter 384 is aptly titled, Can't Fear Your Own Sword, and through a flashback, we're given a window into the emotional foundation of Hisagi and Tōsen's relationship. The scene opens with a younger Lieutenant Hisagi weeping, broken, and begging to be dismissed from his role as a seated officer. Tōsen arrives, summoned, expecting excuses about a common mistake. But Hisagi's pain is deeper than failure. He confesses that he was afraid after his eye was injured. His right eye was wounded, and in that moment of fear, he took a step back. He faltered, and in the face of that weakness, he was ashamed. Tōsen responds, bearing his truth. Those who do not fear the very sword they carry are not worthy of holding one. For Tōsen, the sword Suzumushi was once a symbol of fear, of restraint, and unresolved pain. But when he sheds his identity as a Shinigami and embraces resurrection, he abandons fear altogether. He becomes the blade itself, and in doing so, he fulfills the very prophecy of his collapse that he told back once inside of his own Bankai. Tōsen didn't overcome his fear, he erased it, and in that erasure, he lost a part of himself that made him human. Hisagi, in the symbolism of his right eye being closed, but still being able to see with the left eye, is the representation of the half-truth that we all walk around with through life. When you step out of the darkness into reality, you only know what you can see and what you can feel and hear, still being blind to many other truths. Tōsen never grasped this concept. Although he did instill these values in Hisagi, he didn't wield his blade with understanding. He remained ignorant, shackled in darkness. Tōsen resurrecting through his blade only brought out his true self. Kakyo's words may have once offered him refuge, but her death and the clouded world he lived in only made his reality uglier. He called Sajin ugly, which was fitting for what had become a superficial friendship. Sajin forgave himself and he forgave Tōsen, but the atrocities and lies were beyond recovery. The best Tōsen could offer was a warning, not to become like him in the pursuit of power, a message that would, of course, haunt Sajin, who struggles recovering from this moment. Then there's Hisagi. Tōsen seemingly opened more of his heart to Hisagi than to any other Shinigami, which makes it fitting that he perished by his former lieutenant's blade. Yet the more poetic end to Tōsen lies not in the fight, but in the failed apology to Sajin, and his final request, to see Hisagi's face one last time. Those were his final moments, and ironically, the most real version of Tōsen we ever saw. But ultimately, he was a pawn, and the rope falls into the abyss.
I want to see your face while I still have the chance to remember it.
Aizen!
Weak people seek power, and powerful people seek control. Aizen offered Tōsen a path not to salvation, but to his truest self. Tōsen claimed to believe in the path of least bloodshed, yet he walked beside a man willing to sacrifice thousands in the name of change. Tōsen wasn't the idealist he pretended to be. The moment he was no longer useful to the Ubermensch, he fell into the abyss. But ask yourself, is this truly the world Tōsen believes in? Or is it just the one he embraces to justify his blind justice? Aizen's world offers no form of justice, only order through overwhelming power. And that directly opposes the very injustice Tōsen swore to avenge. Tōsen walked beside Aizen, but their visions were never the same. And we saw this conflict emerge in Hueco Mundo, when Grimmjow questioned Tōsen's punishment. His justice seemed more like zealotry, more about loyalty than principle. Grimmjow and Kenpachi share something in common. They are both agents of chaos, forces of raw destruction, exactly the kind of existence Tōsen wanted to eliminate. Yet deep down, it is also the power he envied, a strength he lacked, but Aizen possessed. Because Tōsen didn't want to erase destruction, he wanted to control it, he wanted to wield it, he wanted to use it for his justice. That's why Aizen and Tōsen serve as mirrors, not psychological parallels, but power parallels. Aizen wields Kyoka Suigetsu, a sword that shapes your reality with perfect illusion. Tōsen wields Suzumushi, which strips you of your senses, dragging you into the void he calls justice. Both bend the world to their design, but Aizen distorts your perception of truth, while Tōsen pulls you into his own handicap, a world where he alone knows the rules. And yet, this ability gives the illusion of empathy. We met Tōsen in that darkness, and he remained there. He was beyond saving, but layered beneath his facade, we saw a flash of his ideal self in Hisagi, who carried Tōsen's fear of the world, but did not have his blindness. The loss of Tōsen's redemption comes at the fault of Tōsen's fake self. He never reconciled the false ideals him and Sajin's friendship were built on. It was all superficial. The realest thing that Tōsen ever told Sajin was that don't allow your hunger for revenge to change who you are, which we know moving forward, Sajin will have a hard time recovering from the loss of this friendship. In my opinion, Kaname Tosen is one of Kubo's most layered, tragic, and compelling characters, a man who embodies the circular nature of Bleach's storytelling, where ideology and identity spiral inward until they consume or free the soul. Thank you for making it to the end. Seriously, I appreciate the support. I know there's already a ton of Bleach content out there, and I'm just getting started on my own journey, so bear with me as I create videos while reading. I'm connecting dots to the 1,000-year Blood War arc by exploring characters and the thematic elements that really flesh out Bleach's story. Alright, that's it for me. Subscribe, turn on alerts to stay up to date, and share and like the video. It really means a lot to the cafe. Peace out, Zealots.